Good evening, friends. The operational situation at the front by the end of February 16th. Let's talk in detail about the Seversky, Bakhmut and Avdeevka directions. Briefly, I will start with the Lyman direction. They asked me to comment, because a lot of information is coming, but I would say even more misinformation on this section of the front. There were a number of reports that allegedly Russian troops managed to come close to the settlement of Terny. Yes, there are a number of such statements, but they absolutely do not correspond to reality. It's too early to talk about positional battles, but we do not record significant changes in this sector of the front. There are attempts from the Russian side. Moreover, today our fighters from the field also reported, a number of reports were made, that the enemy was pulling up armored vehicles and tanks among other things. Somewhere he got stuck, bogged down. Rasputitsa took a number of offensive actions somewhere yesterday, but I repeat, we do not record any significant changes. Although I repeat that it is too early to say that parity will be achieved there will be positional fighting for a long time. Nevertheless, the enemy makes a very big bet on that segment of the front. Well, we move on to the neighboring Seversk direction. The enemy, with the support of armored vehicles, attacked one of the positions of the defense forces. It means that along the railway, in the direction of the settlement, there is a recess. He managed to advance on a front section up to 420 meters wide to a depth of 280 meters. There were fighting operations directly at one of the strongholds. The result is unknown at the stronghold itself, but in part, where the Russian troops advanced, we noted this. The situation for yesterday, the situation for today. A small, but still, the enemy managed to get a promotion. As we can see, the Seversk direction also periodically conducts assault operations. It cannot be said that it is also absolutely in positional combat operations. There are also attempts in the area of Razdalovka, but here the achieved parity is maintained. There is also Bologorovka, where the assault operations continue, but it is possible to restrain him. And accordingly, the direction of the excavation, Ivanadarevka and Disputable, are also key for him. So we record such assaults periodically. We are moving to the Bakhmut direction. We will start with you with Bogdanovka and Popovsky Forest. So, according to reports from the field, first, the enemy managed to advance up to 150 meters in the fields and gain a foothold. This is directly one of the fighters of the 93rd Brigade reports. On the flank, Russian troops are trying to push the southern flank right now, because there were attempts to improve the tactical situation on the part of Russian troops in Bogdanovka itself, but they managed to dislodge them from a number of positions, including. Therefore, the situation is without significant changes. But as for the fields, here they are trying to bypass the advanced positions in the settlement itself and strike from the flank. Therefore, a red zone has been added. And the Popovsky Forest. So the situation has been adjusted a little more there. In this area, the enemy is still pressing, but we also regularly observe counterattacks from the IFU. They do not allow him to confidently gain a foothold in the Popovsky Forest. Therefore, the situation for yesterday, the situation for today. Somewhere a red zone has been added, somewhere on the contrary, it has been repainted and reduced to gray. At the same time, fighting continues in the direction of the Valyanovka railway platform, but we do not record any new changes here. But, it's in any case, they need to make a bait. Information for about the evening, 14:00, after lunch. In the late afternoon, the one that was relevant for this section of the front, the enemy conducts further assault actions. Well, according to Ivanovskoy, so there were also attempts to improve the tactical situation, what we said before, that is, the advance along the T-050 road, in the western direction to Ivanovsko. But we do not record any changes in this sector of the front. The APU managed to throw Chernobyl into the Garden Partnership then, so no changes. We turn to the Avdeevka direction. The situation remains difficult in this sector of the front. Well, we will start with the naturally northern flank, the Avdeevsky Koksohim flank. Active military operations, assault actions on the part of the enemy, and counterattacks on the part of the armed forces of Ukraine continue. So, well, conditionally we will talk in the area of the intersection of 0542 with Industrial Avenue. The enemy is pressing in the north direction, in the direction of fire station number 13, so active hostilities are observed approximately in this area. At the same time, the Apu counterattacks are very serious. The fighters themselves write about this directly from the field. But the fighting is very, very heavy. I will not complain about the bombs, I will not complain about their number, but I will say only briefly that it has increased significantly compared to yesterday, and yesterday it increased by 50% compared, as you remember, with the day before yesterday. Today, there will also be significantly more figures than yesterday. Therefore, there is such a moment. So the active ones continue. If we are talking about the northern part of the northern flank of Avdeevka, as Sohim, in the direction of fire station number 13 for urban development, it means the private sector. The enemy has partial success. In the area of the park and the hospital, he managed to advance and gain a foothold in a number of positions. Here we celebrate the promotion. He set up a flag in the park itself. This means that the advance on a site with a width of up to 370, up to 340 meters, to a depth of up to 370 meters. But the information, I'll make you this very important remark. Let's look at the situation yesterday and today. It is conditionally relevant, because first of all, the enemy published what he published today. It was this afternoon. By the evening, I told you, the situation may change significantly, because new data has not yet been received. This is what was updated in the evening. What is this afternoon? This is the first point, and we will consider 2 points together. And also, the enemy managed to enter the territory of the metal factory, the Avdeevka Metal Products Factory. So, that's why there are fights going on now for this plant. The enemy, at least according to drone footage, entered his territory. Actually, you can see from the plant itself by the actual frame. In fact, there is nothing left, even as a fortified area. It is extremely difficult to use it. The clear point is that these are all aerial bombs. Therefore, the enemy has entered this territory, and the actual situation will be, I would say so. The denouement is visible more or less for tomorrow, because in this area, as well as in the direction of fire station number 13, very heavy fighting is going on now. At the same time, as I said, we will consider these 2 points, which means that both the park and the plant will be considered together. Why? Because there were also reports that they were pressing along the railway and Heroes Street, that we talked to you on the previous broadcast of the daytime, that there is pressure. Then the main blow in the direction of the hospital was, they took these positions and built buildings on the territory of the park. And accordingly, the area is approximately along the railway tracks. It remains with us for clarification, because, again, the information comes late. The situation is quite complicated, but if we proceed from where the enemy is now, and the fact that he is moving further, and storming the plant, then he also focuses on advancing to the 9th quarter, he is also the chemist district. To approach it as much as possible, and accordingly, it means that many are wondering why they are not storming the same Donetsk beach, right? I explain it very simply. It's probably already clearly visible on the map. If the Russian troops fail to break through from Opytan and Vodian, conditionally, in the direction of the intersection, in the direction of the Bad Beam, where a number of positions of Russian troops now exist. On this account, they have a second plan to go down and act as much as possible, then the chemist district, aka the 9th quarter. In other words, it is just the same to complete the encirclement of Avdeevka on this site. Conditionally, what I'm circling now is to try to move forward here, in order to interrupt all supply routes, of course. So that logistics is zero, that is, it does not exist at all. Then there is no question on their part, in order to move in the direction of Donetsk Beach. And accordingly, the garden associations that we have are located east and southeast of the sand pit. And the positions, of course, in the forest, in the planting of the northern industrial zone. And accordingly, a number of streets to the west-northwest of the industrial zone. Then it will be a question if the enemy manages to advance further. But this is from my side. Let me say, as I see it, that it is necessary to leave the territory, because it is possible to get surrounded, and taking into account the fact that the enemy is now using tactical aviation to deliver the main strikes. Not so much artillery but tactical aviation. Those who know firsthand what air bomb strikes are, even the same FAP 500, I'm not talking about 1.5 trucks. They understand perfectly well that there will simply be nothing to do if the enemy takes into the fire bag. In fact, yes, and will hit one area there with dozens of FABs per hour. That is, it is clear to everyone. Therefore, now this is the main plan of the enemy. Well, I think, in any case, I am sure that our command will act as it sees fit. Well, they see more than I do the situation. It's also necessary to make a remark about what's going on, because, if we are talking for the same south of Avdeevka, no matter how much we have done, but recently, the enemy has managed to create a semicircle, and most of the fighters were forced to retreat from the Zenit-Chebaroshka fortified area of the Vinogradniki II Garden Association. Well, we have a similar situation at the Donetsk filtration station, as if the main forces now need to be involved, exactly where the main strikes are coming from the Russian troops. Difficult situation, difficult. I will not predict further. You understand everything yourself. Moving on. May Day. So, according to Pervomaysky, shots from the enemy were published today. He is firing an artillery preparation, so prepare for further assault actions. This suggests that in the near future, I would say probably, well, I can't even say 48, but in the next 24 hours, he will definitely try to conduct a series of assault actions on this sector of the front, both in the direction of the center of Pervomaysky, and along a number of roads between the positions of East Nevelsky and Pervomaysky, based on where his forces are concentrated now, based on the vector of attacks, based on where he uses artillery, where art training is taking place, and not just mutual artillery shelling. There is such a moment. Moving on. Kurikovsky direction without significant changes, and a little bit on Novomikhailovka. Today, the enemy has published a number of frames, conducting assault operations directly in the settlement of Novomikhailovka. So yes, it's no secret to anyone that we have been holding a painting in the eastern part for a week already, that the enemy managed to advance in this sector of the front. Well, and he conducts further assault actions, because for many apparently, focus not only on me, not on my information, but also on a number of dubious sources who say that everything is fine with us, because not everything is good. And yes, there is a video, the enemy conducts assault actions. Now the main ones are still going along the two southern streets, including Timiryozov Street. They are pressing very hard, in the direction of the industrial zone, that is, the main idea of the enemy is clear, to advance, to make their way to the industrial zone as much as possible and pull up forces from the south, that is, to give them the opportunity in this way, let's say, to strengthen at least 2 times the pressure in the locality itself. Therefore, very heavy fighting continues. By the evening, we will say so, without significant changes, because with varying success. Somewhere it is possible to counterattack, discard, somewhere the enemy, everything is within, let's say, the gray zone remains. Somewhere the enemy is pushing. Well, there is also pressure north of Novomikhailovka itself, but it, I would say, is more distracting, that is, classic positional fighting, but here the main idea of the enemy is just to disperse our forces and break through to the industrial zone, and pull up forces from the south. This is the situation we have today at the front. Avdeevka remains a very hot area, but do not forget that we also have very heavy fighting in other areas, because today, I would say according to the news background, a lot of people have forgotten that we also have the Kopensky direction, where extremely complex fighting takes place. The Lyman direction, where I repeat, both today and yesterday, there were assault actions on the part of the enemy, with the support of armored vehicles, and also the Seversky direction of the enemy, and today, he attacked with quite large forces. I would say, that is, there are about 40 to 50 soldiers, with the support of armored vehicles. Well, that is in classic attacks, where he uses 10, 12, 15 to 20 people. This is considered major by the standards of the fighting that we have been going on recently, especially the last 3 or 4 months there. That's the situation. Until tomorrow's broadcast, be healthy.